Hello! Before we dive into this video, we want to acknowledge that yes, our masks are off on camera. After several discussions and us taking the COVID-19 test, we have decided to include each other in our social bubble. We encourage you all to follow your state and county laws. Please wear your mask, wash your hands, and take the COVID-19 test if you feel need to. Thank you so much for watching and enjoy the video. Hello everyone and welcome to our latest episode of Doing the Damn Thing. Before we dive into this video, make sure to hit that red button, subscribe, ring that bell, and of course like, share, comment, all that good stuff. So today it's going to be a little bit of a personal video. We're all actually going to be quite vulnerable and share our insecurities as entrepreneurs in story time form. So get your favorite drink, get cozy, because we're all going to tell you a lovely story about our insecurities. And to kick it off is Carmen.
Hey guys, well thanks for having me as your guest today. So to start it off, I have an insecurity that came up actually recently. I started working with a client and I thought, maybe this is a good opportunity to dive into an industry I hadn't done before, and this was a financial tech industry. And I hadn't really done any business within a business like that. And not only were they financial tech, but they were also remote. So in a different country, different time zones. So this also created some challenges with communication with these clients. So I ended up going through the motions of doing the interview and getting kind of brought into the team. And, I was kind of surprised that they picked me, honestly, because I felt like my background didn't really match quite what they were, what kind of industry they were in. But hey, why not? I can rise to a challenge.
Yeah.
So I decided to go for it. Started working with them, and we had a trial period, so a 2-week trial period that they gave me to kind of just jump on board and see how it went. Well, it seemed okay at first, but then it was more and more things that I had to learn. They were giving me programs that I had to pick up, things that they didn't mention before. Our communication started being really early in the morning or really late at night, so that was becoming inconvenient for me. And more I just felt stress piling on. I did some work for them. I felt like they didn't like it, and that doesn't feel good, so I became even more stressed and kind of more insecure about my work.
Yeah.
And then it ended up being just too much stress for how much work I was putting in, and then I hadn't seen a dime yet. So that, again, wasn't really motivating because I just, hadn't even been paid. So I got out of this agreement, and I realized my big lesson was you don't have to say yes to every client. And every client may not be for you. So I wanted to say yes. I wanted to push it forward. And if they wanted to work with me, I wanted to do my best. But in the end, it wasn't really a good fit for me on my end.
Yeah.
So I realized I could have handled the situation a little better, maybe known in the beginning not to go into an industry that I'm not super familiar with. But I didn't want to hold myself back,
Yeah.
So
especially because you're at the time where you're building your portfolio, and some of you guys me, gone through this, where you're building your portfolio, so you want to take on those new clients, and you get super excited, and then you realize maybe not.
Yeah, and it's it's okay to say no. That's a good thing for yourself to say no and really gauge what you can handle. And, maybe that means, researching a little bit more into that industry, a little bit more into that company before you say yes. And also using your voice and being really your best advocate. So in the end, if you feel pushed or railroaded by people or a client, don't let that happen. You don't have to say yes to everything that they want. You can push back.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to stand up for yourself.
Yeah,
I have a question. Did they ever end up paying you for the work that you did?
No. So once the agreement was terminated, I guess, they kind of felt like I hadn't done enough work, that they didn't really feel it was valid for me to change my price, because that's kind of how I addressed it, was well, this is a lot of work, so I'm going to change the price on you.
Yeah.
And they said, we were not really worried about the money, that's not what it is, but it's the fact that you've produced no work, and you're asking for twice as much. And I was I did a whole month of posts for this. This is a social media marketing job. So I did a whole month of posts. They didn't like them. I don't know. It just wasn't a good fit. So instead of kind of guiding me through what they wanted and maybe laying things out a little more clearly, I felt just things were getting thrown at me. And that's maybe not a good working relationship.
Yeah. And it's hard because when you meet clients like that, it's more of like you start to realize they don't really know their brand maybe as well, because they should be able to be like, we want these type of colors or these type of pictures, and we want it to look like this. And, you know, you shouldn't be, if you're going to be hired on to create the whole will, it's like, then they need to pay you to create the whole damn will.
Yeah, and I just had a very different way of working. I felt like the way that I wanted to work was a little more independent. I wanted to just be left alone to do what I do, and then they could come back with maybe some feedback. But I think they wanted a little bit more of like me checking in. They wanted to check my work. They wanted to like oversee a little bit more. So it's good to maybe open those lines of communications and ask these questions to your clients. Like, how do you prefer to work? Do you want to check in on me, or would you prefer that I kind of take the reins? And then another actual lesson that I learned from this is know your audience. Know what kind of client you want. And I realized that I want a client who is a little more hands-off, that just lets me do my thing and do my best. And like, then we can kind of talk and see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I like that too, because the thing is, so I feel like the work should dictate how you're going to tweak things over time, because social media is measurable. So, you know, those posts could have been performing really well, and like maybe it would have taken a little while for the audience to actually catch on to what the message was. So if you're able to, if you had the opportunity to show them the analytics and say, well, this one did well, these ones didn't do so well, so why don't we tweak the strategy? Then it would have been more of a collaboration between you and the client, as opposed to them saying that's not good or whatever it is.
Or do this, and then I disagreed, or I didn't really like it, and I felt myself on all these like calls with this like horrible face of confusion like the entire time, and I was like making this face like, what is going on? So I knew that was maybe not a good sign. So always remember, you can say no. You don't have to say yes to every client. Not all money is good money. And protect yourself and your well-being and your mental health first. Yeah, so that was my big lesson.
We've all been there.
Yes. Do you want to dive in, or do you want me to share?
Sure. I can go.
Okay.
Yeah, so mine is about being afraid to charge so much.
Yes.
I don't have that much of a problem now, but it's taken so long for me to get to this place. I've been in business like 12 years, so it's a lot of practice of not charging enough. That had me actually do this. So basically what would happen in the very beginning is I got really good at writing these elaborate proposals to have clients want to work with me or work with our company. But the thing was, I'd get to the place where you put what the investment is, you know, what it's going to cost them, whether it be just flat rate or by the month. And I would say, okay, do I want to put that? Oh, I don't know. That might be too much. And I lowered my price because I didn't want them to say no. I had this fear that, if I price this too high, then they might not accept. And so one of the biggest lessons that I learned is you should never assume that you know how much the client is willing to pay for what they find as valuable. Because what I start to observe with other companies that people would choose is that some of these companies charge a lot of money. And, you know, and they, you know, I feel like when companies pay a certain amount of money, they're expecting results. And although there's pressure there, if you are being paid a lot of money, you have the resources to be flexible. You can, you know, I could say, hey, Nicole, I really need help on the social media part of this. Or, hey, Carmen, can you take photos? Because that's not really my strong suit. And you can build that in and make it like a collaborative team effort. So you're not the Lone Ranger trying to complete this one project yourself. But seriously, it took me years. So now my strategy is actually opposite. I will do a spreadsheet that kind of budgets out all the different line items, plus what I'm going to be charged in taxes, because that's another thing too. Taxes, any, you know, I factor in my costs outside of just the work that I'm doing or paying my team to do. And then before I send it, I bump up the price. And, you know, it might be $500, it might be $1,000, or sometimes I'll push it even higher and be like, okay, how do I feel about this? You know, like, I might go this, you know, just like hope.
Hope. But like, I love that strategy, because if you give them like a higher price, then if they come back with a counter offer, at least if they start charging less, it still covers all your costs. And you're still making a profit. Instead of if you're starting bottom, then it's like, well, they're always gonna come back.
Right. And then the piece of this that I really want to make sure all of you in the audience who are very new at your business, or you're thinking about starting a business or pivoting, whatever you're doing, and you have a service-based industry, is that it doesn't feel good when you charge too little. For some reason, and it's probably like, what do we call it, Murphy's Law or karma or whatever. And it's like you lower your price, like, oh, I really didn't want to do it for that low, fine. And then all of a sudden everything goes wrong. You have the worst client. They're super demanding. They something happens to your computer and you have to bring it to the Apple store or get a new one. You know, all these things come up, and it's like the universe saying, see, I told you should have charged what you're worth.
Exactly.
Totally.
Boom.
Yeah, you have to really start high, I think, and don't underestimate your skills. Like, I remember actually Lauren did an exercise with me once when I was feeling really nervous about pricing, and she says, okay, let's talk about your education. How much did you spend on your education? Let's start there. How much do you spend on your equipment? How much do you spend on all this time that you've put into this? And then it really adds up and you see how much you're worth. And it's actually kind of surprising. You're like, really? I'm worth this much? Like, I should be paid this much? But yeah, once you lowball yourself, it almost like pulls your motivation down. You don't even want to do the project as much because it's not worth your time at that point. And if you really spread it out and list out all the things that you're already spending money on, you can have a way better idea and feel more confident in that price.
Because you also do have the account for your mental health, and then also if you are an entrepreneur, your health insurance, you're paying for that. Like, there's a lot of costs instead of just like, this is the project, this is what I'm working on. And also, if people don't want to pay that, then they're not ready to invest in their business. They're just really not. They're trying, I know, at least for me, for like social media, people think it's like, oh, it's one cute post and it's gonna just like, you know, I'll just pay like, you know, $500 for like a month. And I'm like, or maybe not, like because you're expecting me to create this wonderful post to get all these results when you haven't posted in like 6 months. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's not like we might have the magic formula that will get them there, but a lot of things take time. Like, it's a conversation between the client and their audience, so you have to build that relationship, and that relationship costs money. Just like when you're dating, right? You know, you're spending money on dates, buying each other presents, all that stuff. It's not like, okay, I look the best and I fed you the best dinner and now we're going to be a couple. Like, no, it's not like that. So it's the same in business.
You have to invest in these relationships. Absolutely.
So do you have a tip, or just a real quick off of that? You know, when you're writing out your contract, people can do like 50% now, 50% later, or all up front. Like, how do you go about that? I mean, I'm pretty sure it changes per client, but like, what do you think is the best, safest way?
I'll tell you the 2 ways that I do it and how I figured out doesn't work.
Okay.
So what does not work is the 50% upfront and 50% at the end. Because I used to do that a lot, especially when it was a short project. But short projects always end up being extended. So like what would happen is I'd get this 50% deposit or 60% deposit upfront, and then as a result of client communication or something happens, lack of whatever resources we need to get the job done, it would carry on for months, and I'm like, dang, this is taking so much of my time, and I'm running out of resources for myself. I can't feed myself, I can't pay my team members anymore. So then there's a lot of pressure, and then the project isn't fun anymore. So I typically don't do 50% upfront and 50% later. So what I usually do is require at least a 50% deposit, then I break it up. So it might be like in 2 months after or 3 months after. And sometimes what will happen is we complete the project earlier than the duration of the payment schedule. But that's okay, because at least you're getting paid. You have a contract. Make sure you have a contract.
Yes, please have a contract.
Yeah, don't do things without having it in writing, because like what you were talking about earlier, scope creep. Scope creep is when the client changes the scope or what you're going to do, and it's so unclear and undefined and just assumed that it fits under the same price when it really doesn't. Because you have to learn something new, or you're adding new people or whatever. So what does work, I found, is if you're planning to charge a lot of money, so let's say if you're charging $5,000 for a service like a website or whatever it is, do a monthly payment plan if that works for you, and you know all of your costs. Or I usually would do, like I just said, 50% and then break it up into payments. And on top of that, this is another tip that I learned recently and it really works, is that you give them 3 payment options. So in the proposal, I give the top line item. Let's just say it's $10,000. So all of this under my proposal costs $10,000. And under payment options, I say $10,000 if you choose to pay 50% up front and then the rest in, just say, 3 months. Or $12,000 if you choose to pay 50% up front and the rest in 5 months. And then $14,000 if you want to pay in 8 months. And then extend the payment plan. Because some clients are so confident that you're going to do a great job, but they just don't have the capital to pay you a lot of money up front, and they know as you work with them they'll be able to scale. So some clients actually are willing to do the extended payment plan. Like I had one client who we're just doing a 3-month campaign. And they said they needed to pay over a duration of 9 months, so we just bumped that price up by $4,000, and they were willing to spread the payments out like a credit card. So and the last thing that I'll say about this is that charging too little is a habit. Because if you do it a few times and you're like, yeah, I think I'm okay with that price, you're never going to scale. Think about the future of your company. Like, do you want to have a better lifestyle or enhance the equipment that you have or grow a team? Like, you have to raise your prices.
So mine has a little bit to do with money, because I think you two talked a lot about money, but mine really, if you want to give it a title, it's like imposter syndrome, which I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs go through, not just once, not just twice, but numerous times in their career. But when I started on my entrepreneurial journey, I didn't want to call myself entrepreneur, because I had this idea of what an entrepreneur looks like, and I felt like I didn't hit that goal yet. And so I was just like, oh, like I have like this business, and okay, like sort of meek about it. And I didn't know, because I didn't hit certain goals, right? I didn't feel like, oh, I didn't make this amount of money, or I don't have this amount of contacts, or I don't have this amount of followers, so I shouldn't be an entrepreneur. Like, that's for other people, right?
Wow.
And it took a long time, because especially in the beginning, I don't know if you guys felt this way, but when you're in the beginning and you have so many different skill sets, right? Because us entrepreneurs, there's a lot of things we want to work on. You don't know what exactly is your main calling card, and it takes such a long time. So you're sort of a generalist instead of a specialist, and you're just like, how do I sell this? Am I like, I can't be good at like all these things. And then, you surround yourself with people that are like, no, like you are. And it's just like, I felt for the longest time, and when I say the longest time, I mean years, of sort of being meek in the corner. It wasn't really until I started collaborating with people where I made a choice to be like, okay, like I'm an entrepreneur, like guys, like it's like Superwoman, but it's still sometimes, you hit like some negative people. I remember a few years ago, I went to this like conference in Palo Alto, and it was a Latinx conference, right? I felt like I was surrounded, at least by my people. And there was this woman that worked in VC, or she's worked in like VC funding. And I just had a straight up question for her. I'm like, with the magazine, because I'm always thinking of different funding opportunities. I'm like, is the VC route the route we should go? Because like if I want to build it as a media company, and just give me as much advice as you can for now, because I know time is money, so I don't want you to charge me. so I was just like, but like, what exactly then do I need to have in order, right? Before I even think of doing that. And she was super rude about it. She was just like, oh, they won't invest in a lifestyle company. And I'm like, oh, ouch. And I'm like, okay. I'm just sitting there with my bread. I'm like, this is super rude. Now I got to sit right next to you for the next 20 minutes while this speaker speaks, and it's so annoying. But then it's moments like that where you're just sort of like, I don't know, like for me, I'm like, well, okay. And I got all sad, and then I got in the car with Nick, and he's like, why are you sad? I'm like, this VC lady said I'm not going to get any money.
Yeah, so maybe just like being really sure about who you are and what your goals are and why you're doing it, and don't let anybody derail you just because, she said that comment doesn't mean that it's impossible, and you can't let it get to you.
Yeah. But we've heard this story over and over again, even with the companies that are really successful. Like, how many companies have said they went to every single VC or like the guy from KFC went to every single restaurant to sell his recipe, and everyone was like, no, you know, like every single successful person has gone through it, but that sucks.
I know, and I don't know if you guys ever felt like in your journey, because we're all different parts of the journey, that how long did it take you guys to feel comfortable saying you're an entrepreneur? Or was it sort of just like, this is the title I'm going to give myself and I'm moving forward?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think for me it was always like, I own a company that does this, or I own a vinyl record store, I own a restaurant. It was never like, I'm an entrepreneur. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It took a while because I was like, well, I like doing this, and then when it was social media marketing, that's so broad, and I had to actually start working with different clients to figure out what part of it do I actually like and what parts I'm like, I don't want to do that at all. And so just like having to go through trial and errors, right? And that's something I want you guys to realize. You have the clients in the beginning, like, don't tell them this, but they're your trial and errors. Like, you're like learning along the way. And I was doing a business coaching session with someone, and I was telling them, I'm like, you're starting as a social media marketing, specialist, so know that every client's supposed to help build your portfolio. Don't tell them that they're building your portfolio, but that's what it's going to be. So you got to figure out which ones you actually want in your portfolio.
So I'm curious, what are the feelings behind imposter syndrome that come up?
Oh, when I'm feeling all like this, it's like, is really like insecurity, and really almost like a fear, like I'm lying to people, and that I'm going to get in trouble. Also, this is something I've been dealing with my therapist. I have a fear of getting into trouble. That's a whole other story. But, so it's like that. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to get in trouble, and then I'm going to get yelled at. And then it brings up all these other things. And I'm like, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't get in trouble. And so it's just that. And I'm like, I don't want people to think I'm lying to them. I don't want to let people down. I also don't want people to have extreme high expectations of me that I can never meet. And then I'm like, and then, like, there's the anger side of me that's like, F everyone,
So when you say that you're afraid of, like, lying to people, are you afraid that they're going to, like, think you're not as skilled?
Yeah, like, they're going to assume, if you call yourself this, you should have X, Y, and Z in your portfolio. Or you should have gotten these type of results, or blah, blah, blah. Or that somehow, like, and I think we all feel this way, we need to tell people. Luckily, we're in the Bay Area, and it's been a few years, like, it's been years of the entrepreneur bubble, but there's still people out there that's, like, entrepreneur to them means, like, you are just sleeping on your couch, like, not even your couch, like your friend Brad's couch, so it's, like, that you don't really have, like, a job, and it's, like, it took a while for my parents to figure out, like, I have a job. Like,
you just can't pinpoint it necessarily. So don't feel bad if, you're not some kind of idea of what you think the entrepreneur is. If you're working, you're building, and there's not really a concrete, definition of an entrepreneur. Like, you can go about it any way you want. I think that's maybe it's hard to find your identity, and that's why you feel like an imposter. You're like, okay, well, how do I create this identity that I, like, know what I'm doing and I know what I'm after? It's like maybe just spending the time to ask yourself those questions.
And so it comes up, like, for me, it was like building up confidence, figuring out why do I have those insecurities, and then I can start calling myself certain things, right? But I'm always the type of person that goes to the source. So I'm like, why do I feel that way? How can I address that? Then I can build from there, because it's not like anyone has ever said you're a liar. I had another one, like, a few years ago. I went to, like, this speaker event at University of San Francisco, and there was this woman straight up, again, rude. So she's like, I'm like, I'm an entrepreneur. Straight up asked me if my company has me money, and this is, like, the beginning. And I'm like, no, not yet. And she's like, ugh, and then blew me off. And I'm like, why are people so rude?
It's a hard journey, and it's, like, not necessarily quantifiable at every step. But you're still doing work, and you're still building, so it matters.
You should have been like, actually, I've made a lot.
How would you know?
Millions of dollars. I know. And it baffles me. I'm like, who asked those questions? I would never ask someone that question.
It's very personal and competitive. And I think as entrepreneurs, we also bring this energy of, like, collaboration. We know how hard it is out there, and we're here for ourselves, and we're working for ourselves. But, like, I feel like I don't want to bring anybody down because of that, because I wouldn't want someone to do that to me, you know? So if anything, I want to lift everybody up. Like, that's my entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. It's like we should be supportive of each other, but I feel like also, to play devil's advocate, is I feel like that entrepreneur spirit includes, and I don't know about you guys, it's a very type A build, and so there's a lot of alpha personalities, and they could get vicious out here. Like, it's like, you know, they can either be rude, or they don't talk to you because maybe you don't have enough followers for them, or they don't want to collaborate, and it's all about, like, who's going to get that next dollar, and it's like, damn it, like, can we all just get the next dollar? Can we just split it and get 25 cents each? Like,
but it is business, right? In the end, we can't take it personally. Like, it is business. If you try to collaborate with somebody and they're like, you're not really on my, on my level, fine, move on, you know, find some other people who are down to collaborate with you. Because in the end, we still can't take things personally if it comes down to that. Yeah.
Well, I loved our story time. I hope you guys enjoyed our story time too. So comment below any of your insecurities, if any of our insecurities resonated with you, and also any solutions that you guys may have for us.
We're always looking for new.
Yeah. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.